everybody. Welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousma, and with me this week from all across the country, we have the Reverend Tracy. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, Tim. Yeah, we are officially, I think we were last time too. We're Portland to Portland now.
Yep.
So super fun times with that and etc. How are you doing?
Doing much better this week. With our big concern last week here in the house was Sherman, of course. He was not doing so well. This week he is doing much better. He's eating. Right now, I don't know. It could be one of two things because he is on some prescription steroids, I guess, which was supposed to help with his appetite. So it's good that he's eating. But the professor said in the past when he had cancer, he would eat when he had these steroids, but the moment the steroids went away, he the his eating went down. And my concern is that he's not eating his regular hard food. Now, best possible scenario here is that, to your point, he's just like, fuck it, I'm not going to eat anything because you got tuna in the house. That is what I hope for. But the other fear, of course, is that with his age and the fact that he has had cancer before in that area and whatnot, that the steroids could essentially still be masking a problem per se. But that's me always looking on the bright side of things. I
That
mean,
is
oh,
one thing. If Tim is known for anything, it is his abundance of positivity and a half
yeah,
glass full attitude. That's why we're friends.
exactly.
Well, but also something to consider. I had to change beans from hard food, and that made a significant difference in how often she was sick and how much she was eating
Mhm.
because she just seemed to avoid it. She got to a point where I think she was just done with dry food. And then, I've been very open about the fact that I cook food for my cat. It is hilariously the only time I buy meat and eggs, really,
Mhm.
like grocery wise, like unless I'm making chili, because that's different. You got to make Texas chili with the beef ingredients. But other than that, like that's what I do. I cook her food. It's cheaper than getting the canned food too. So it really just kind of worked out better. I Blue Buffalo is great. I support them. They actually happen to support local shelters, which is a fun fact. So
Yeah.
when you buy Blue Buffalo, you are actually supporting local shelters. I used to do that, where they would send their bags in like these little containers. And my job for my volunteer hours was to sit there and like put some of the kernels in this little plastic thing and glue it. So they had them for like, hey, here's what it looks like with the nutrient bits. And every like however many of those I did, they gave money to the shelter that I volunteered for. So
Nice.
just a fun fact about Blue Buffalo, I'm not knocking paying for it other than it is expensive. It is more of a treat food. But yeah, he's just getting older, so there might be some diet considerations to make too.
Yeah, because we did have some cans of Blue Buffalo like pate that we had for the cats that Phil used to just absolutely love. But Sherman's reaction around it was funny because I put it out and I did put a little chicken bone broth in it because he's been responding to that. But I put it in the pate. He went over to the pate, sniffed it, and then started scratching the ground next to the food like he was in his litter box or something. So it's like either he was like covering it up, saving it for later, or he was like, this is shit, you know?
No. No, that is a very funny way to interpret that. From what I understand for animal behavior, it's the former. It's usually that they're trying to save it for later.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if it were shit, they just would ignore it and probably not
Yeah.
paying attention to it. But I know I've watched my cat snub some food before.
Yeah.
But so I was very happy to see Sherman doing better. As far as hijinks of moving, what's been going on with me lately is I think I live in the most persnickety, like bitchiest apartment I've ever lived in. So I don't remember. Oh, really? Speaking of cats and the apartment thing, Beans caught a mouse. And that
Yes.
turned into a hilarious roller coaster that lasted way longer than it fucking needed to. Because it turns out maybe my Buddhism is a little contagious, and it turns out that my cat wouldn't even hurt a mouse. So what happened was that she had caught it, but she hadn't hurt it at all. And then she just started following me around with it, like like, hey, I almost can feel it in her face, like, hey, this needs to go outside like you do with the bugs and the spiders, right? Like, she
Well,
just looking at me, and I swear to God, like, if I hadn't have been here, I don't know if I would have believed it. But the Mr. Reverend actually got a plastic bag, and Beans tried to drop it in the bag to give it to him.
okay. Well, but remember though, the cats do that as she was doing that as a way of giving it to you as a gift. It was, here, Ma, this is for you. I caught this for you. Do you love this fresh mouse, Ma? You're gonna eat it. You're gonna like it. Eat it in front of me, Ma.
I mean, that could be it, but I go back to she's caught mouse or mice before when I haven't been home.
Hmm.
There's never been signs that she's eaten them. And usually when they're dead, they're just like, they're not hurt, it seems. So it's more, they can die of shock and being, played to death, like if she kept dropping it and catching it again and stuff like that. So mostly I think I've just decided, like, wow, I don't think my cat actually like kills mice on purpose. I don't know,
Had,
because I've been around a lot of cats and barn cats. So I have seen that. And just watching her do it was really funny.
has she ever been an outside cat?
Mm-mm. And that's probably, I mean, but I watch
Yeah.
her tear up her mouse toys and stuff. So it's really funny that this is like the one thing where it's like, no, I'm not going to hurt it. I'm not going to rip the stuffing out of this. I'm not going to tear it up. I'm just going to like,
Well,
anyway.
she
So
doesn't have to do. I mean, you make her food. She doesn't have to consider this as food. She can just consider it a curious new toy. Or, I mean, she probably knows it's a living thing, of course, but it's probably just, this is fun. Hey, Ma, do you want to play? You know?
either way, whatever the reason was, we finally, as a family, and one of us not being an English speaker, got this mouse cornered. At one point, I had just left the back door open, was just hoping it would run outside.
Yeah.
But I very bravely adorned the of glove and grabbed it by the tail and flung it out the door at one point. So it
Okay.
ran off blissfully and probably thanking its little mousy god into the night. So that was kind of the major hijink. She seemed very proud of herself, though. Like, she was super affectionate that whole night. So I was like, okay, you're proud and happy. You caught a mouse.
Yeah.
But
Now
I
the
guess even at her older age, she is spry.
like, but still, imagine this mouse now going back to its mouse family and being like, I was taken into this place, and these people were catching me, and this creature had me in its jaws, and they're like, shut up, Cletus. You know, Cletus the
Guys,
mouse.
you're never gonna believe me. Fucking aliens. Yeah, it's like when there's like a joke, I think, from Jeff Foxworthy or one of the blue collar comedy guys, where it's
Yeah.
like that fishing is kind of like when you throw the fish back, how you're probably that fish's like abduction
Oh,
story.
that reminds me. That reminds me. I did on our Instagram page post this like Twitter meme of somebody stating that maybe UFOs are like billionaires from other planets coming to visit us. And then on Instagram, this podcast that talks about flat earthism challenged us as a podcast to have him on so he could convince us that the earth was flat. And I went to his Instagram page, and the moment I saw one picture that said, the moment that you believe two planes fly in the World Trade Center is the moment you believe a mask will protect you from a virus or some stupid shit like that, I quickly blocked the guy. But people are insane. Yes, if you
Yeah,
could see.
I think I'm cool with that. Like, I wish, like, I know we don't do the video anymore, but like, I'm sure my face told it all. Like, yeah, I think I would honestly give that one a little bit of a pass because I just don't really think there's a lot of things, right? Like, I think you especially know me well enough that I'm open to hearing and open to believing. Like, I even joke that, hey, I watch Ancient Aliens, and the deal with myself is I have to be open to believing some of it. And that's more of a little bit of a joke than anything. But I do
Yeah.
try to approach conversations with that. And I just think it would be rude of me to even pretend that I'm open to believing that the world is flat.
Yeah, because there's one thing if you're talking about a conspiracy theory like the JFK assassination, for instance, because there are legitimate questions about the government's official story with the Warren Commission and all that, and there are legitimate questions there. But flat Earth, we've had people go up into space and kind of picture. I mean, it's come on, come on.
Yeah, and now, come on, guys. We have people who travel around the earth. I don't understand this. Like, and I just realized like that really came off with way more attitude than I probably meant it, but it is kind of that frustrating. Like, I don't understand how people do believe that there's a flat earth, and that is where it's like, yeah, maybe I'd pass. There was a part like, ooh, how many followers does he have? But then you got into some of the other stuff, and I'm like, never mind. I
Yeah,
didn't think I could in good faith take that interview.
yeah, and speaking of that, people like that are very much the type who ignore vaccines, and because of that, we are now looking at the potential of another shutdown.
Yes,
Yay!
even here in Maine, where kind of one of the perks was, the Mr. Reverend and I sort of got to enjoy some before time feelings almost, and not having to wear masks, because before anybody gets mad at me, population density really does matter to how you need to do it. I still wasn't going up and like rubbing up against like the butts of people at grocery stores or anything. I kept my distance while not wearing a mask. But the other people that I hung out with were vaccinated. Anybody that was in close proximity was vaccinated. And now we've just released that while it's not being mandated yet, our governor is like really encouraging people to wear masks. So I get to see how that plays out here, I guess. Yeah, and the science is out. Unfortunately, if you haven't already heard the bummer of news, the Delta variant can in fact be passed from people who have been vaccinated from COVID. Now, what I was unclear on was the efficacy of the other vaccination against Delta, but I think they're still figuring that out. I haven't dug into that part yet, other than we got to mask up. And that's kind of where I'm like, okay, I know what I need to know about it so far, and I will figure out my personal risk later.
Yeah, it's kind of the same way here in Portland. We did have the announcement that in Multnomah County here that they are requiring masks again, even if you are vaccinated. And it's kind of sucks too because the world is just kind of opening up. As heard in the archives of the show, it's been really nice being able to take advantage of going to the movies again. Just something as simple as that, and just hearing the fact that we are back at this point and the fact that it is completely preventable if every able-bodied person that could get a vaccine could just get one, and yet this somehow had to become a political stunt. Now, when this is all said and done, I'm sure that there can be some legitimate arguments made for the media kind of overinflating things at times, because the media does do that. Let's call it fair, but we have medical experts that like Fauci, for instance. Republicans hate him, but Fauci has worked with numerous Republican presidents throughout the years. The only reason now that he's a bad guy is that he dared contradict the uber orange leader. And yeah, and it's because I've noticed in the news this week too a couple of things, like Sean Penn. He has a TV show on one streaming service. I forgot which one, but the show is called Gaslit. But he is doing a good thing. He is refusing to go back to work until everybody on set is vaccinated, and I say that's a good thing because he is a person in position of power, as Sean Penn, with his acting degree being what it is. He has a lot of power to have things happen on set, and being able to use that power in a positive way is good. But on the flip side, we have someone like Eric Clapton, who has come out and said that for future shows he will not play at venues that require people to prove that they are vaccinated.
Yeah, that is I am
Insane.
fine with not going to see Eric Clapton right now, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But so wait, I just wanted to make sure I caught that correct, because the Portland to Portland difference. So you guys are already talking about mandates. Do you have one that's going into effect?
Well, I posted the article up on the fans of Friends Talking Nerdy page, the group page, and it's the mask thing. I think is coming soon, I believe. Let me bring it up here real quick while you distract.
I could totally distract and amaze. But no, I guess I could just go ahead and say right now in Maine, it's not required yet, but they already are saying stuff on, I've talked on this show about how I try to make sure I keep my pulse on society. So I've got one of those awesome little news apps. I was dorking out with Tim a little bit about it, showing how my watch was like, oh, they're talking about mask mandates in Maine right now live. And, they don't talk like that here, by the way, very intentionally doing my old country accent. But anyway, so I had seen that. So I guess they're talking about it. But I had also seen one where they were saying, hey, Maine, you should prepare to need to wear masks again. So it is kind of nice that our local news, which is very interestingly enough, seeming some kind of mix between Fox and another one, which I want to look into that more and figure out what's going on with that, because both of the emblems are on the truck or something.
Okay.
But but anyway, so they've started releasing like the local stuff saying, yeah, the governor's saying that we're going to start following the CDC recommendation, which says that if you have moderate spread, you need to consider doing masks again. And we are officially at moderate spread levels. So
Yeah.
hey, at least I found my local apps for helping keep me informed, but not panicked. So that's always a goal for me. But so what did you find out about Portland, Oregon?
Yes, from Willamette Weekly, it's Multnomah County now recommends wearing a mask, so whether you're vaccinated or not. So it's not a mandate as of yet. So if people are fully vaccinated and they're like at an outdoor event and they don't want to wear a mask, it's not mandatory as of yet. But with the way things are going, it's going to get there, because one avenue I've paid attention to, because they are a good barometer of just whether a public is going to be open or not, is, believe it or not, pro wrestling. Because pro wrestling, if they're traveling around the country, they have to know that people are going to be there. And word is that the number 2 company in the country, AEW, which has a weekly show on TNT, they had just announced that they made some plans for traveling around the country, but there's also backstage word that they are seriously concerned about the chances of those shows happening, and that they are getting some contingency plans in place. Now, don't feel bad for them, because the people that own that company own the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they will be able to have shows at the place where the Jacksonville Jaguars play, so they're going to be fine. But as far as them not being able to tour, that's just an indication that they're getting wind that there's a chance that things would close down again. And I don't know how people are going to react in this country, after having a little bit of freedom dangled in front of them. It really, really scares me.
Yeah. And I hear you. It's already been a problem, right? Like they've said before, like, hey, please don't go do insert thing. And then it's like the crowd gets the bad case of the yeah, but me's, and they go do it anyway. And that was even early on when we were really effectively shut down so abruptly, because they just wanted to learn about how this worked, how it was spread. And that was the thing that I feel like a lot of people missed. They just saw being told what to do, and none of the logic behind why they were being told what to do. And so, yeah, I mean, and that goes back to it being politicized, right? Because you can't speak logic once somebody has already had the lizard brain prodded really hard. And so once that news outlet, Fox News, already had put the headlines out there to kind of preface it that way, right? Because we've talked about how dangerous headlines can be. And maybe if it's sparking a really strong emotion in you, you should consider where you're getting your headlines from. But, once that's already been sparked, it's kind of hard to talk logic to that again. And that's basic psychology of lizard brain versus logic brain.
Yeah. So right now, this show, like 10 years from now, is going to be interesting to kind of like listen back to, because it's kind of tracked the entire thing from start to where we are now, and then hopefully when it will finish at some point. So going back and kind of re-listening to how the world was crazy may be interesting and whatnot. But I hope enough people get vaccinated quick enough that these variants do not become a serious issue. But just, if you haven't done so already, get vaccinated, wear a mask. You are not becoming a socialist by doing that. So anyway, are you having issues with your camera right now?
Oh, am I? No, I actually wanted to show you. I was trying to be discreet. I wanted to show you the interesting app, and it shows Fox News and CBS. Is that who the eyeball is?
Yes.
Anywho, so that's what I thought was interesting that I kind of was trying to express earlier. So that's what I was trying to do. My bad. Sorry for the distraction. On the podcast recording, we are staunch professionals here at Friends Talking Nerdy.
We are.
And I'm still getting over the complications of not having internet just yet. So I can't just discreetly look shit up on my computer and go unnoticed by Tim, because all he sees is my finger poking at my camera probably. So
well, the camera went off for a second. It was back to your profile picture. I mean, it may have been, or maybe the phone went to sleep or something like that. But anyway, enough about the pandemic. We if you have common sense, you know what to do. Mask up. If you haven't vaccinated yet, get yourself vaccinated. Otherwise, just stay safe. Keep cautious too. I mean, we have freedom. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to go out all the time, because it's there. Have a little common sense for now. Just let's not really screw this up.
Exactly. And if you can't get vaccinated, and I'm not going to sit here and say which reasons are valid or which ones are not, because your life is not mine. But if you can't get vaccinated, mask wearing is, to me, not an unreasonable ask to not hurt other people or even yourself. So, I mean, if you want to go that turn about it too, there's that way. But, wearing a mask, staying home, I've got loved ones who aren't vaccinated, but they are sending other loved ones out to the stores for them. Like, there are workarounds if you cannot, or even, I dare say, do not want to get the vaccine. Still, I kind of am overall, I'm unconvinced why some people feel they just don't want to. I don't fully understand it, but I also try to realize I don't live their life. And I've got this whole weird nagging thing in my head is like, yeah, but everybody hasn't been exposed to the exact same information you have in the order you were exposed to it. I don't know. It is a pickle, because it's like there's friendships being lost over it. But like you said, to move away from pandemic talk, because it's been a year of our life now.
Yeah.
We could talk about some of the stuff going on in the Olympics, right? Because
exactly.
That's worthy.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think I had shared, I don't remember if I shared it on the Friends Talking Nerdy group, but if I haven't, I should. But there was a really nice article put together called About Time, and Gay Athletes Unleash Rainbow Wave on the Olympics. And essentially just that we are kind of at a point that, I don't think that people really fully realize that being queer is still something that you feel like you have to keep closeted in certain venues. And there are some, and yeah, when you think about it, the Olympics hasn't been a place where anybody has proudly held the hand of their gay lover or their partner, or, their partners if they're polyamorous, which is still a subset of the queer community that still faces a lot of discrimination. So it's really awesome to start seeing things like this. And these are the kind of news stories that I like to see and that make me so happy.
Nice. And now I know the article you mentioned, I think you did post it on the group page. Which people were they talking of specifically?
Well, they mentioned immediately Tom Daley, but he announced in 2013 that he was dating a man and couldn't be happier. But they're really talking about how it's just kind of becoming more acceptable, and how even, what was it? Openly gay competitors in Tokyo, even, which I'm not sure their culture there with that, because I think that's a lot of the thing with the Olympics is you're dealing with so many different cultures, and there are a number of them that are not okay with the queer community. And it's still very much like how it used to be here. What you do is behind closed doors, but we don't need to hear about it. So really, it was just talking about a rave of rainbow-colored pride, openness, and acceptance, which seems to be kind of generally coming through the Olympics. That people are more open about being not in the closet about their relationships, and even some of them being as comfortable as holding hands at some of the celebrations that they're at. So it was really more of a remark of finally seeing those signs of acceptance in something that has so many different cultures intermixed.
And that is one thing that sports and entertainment can do so well. I think of professional wrestling. I would love. I guess I'm on a big kick this week in pro wrestling, but they travel in non-pandemic times. They travel to the Middle East routinely, and in the Middle East, we know when it comes to women's rights, they're not the best, as far as how America judges them. But the WWE has been able to make some inroads in terms of having female performers actually be able to perform in front of groups of people, in front of men and women, and by all accounts, that has definitely led to some like young girls in that area, just definitely being inspired by seeing women getting there and doing the same things that guys are doing, and it seems like fun. And arts, sports, stuff like that can definitely open people's minds. It's a seed planting too, because it's not something that it's not like Olympic person who wins a gold medal goes to their gay lover, and then that means the Middle East is going to be totally supportive of gays like that. But it plants a seed. That's what we want. That's the beauty of what sports can do.
Exactly. And part of what that article had talked about. So if you didn't get a chance to click on it and read it, I mean, you totally can. It talks about, which I thought it was kind of funny because I guess there's this gay website called Outsports. And I don't know, I found it a little creepy at first to read that they have been tallying the numbers of publicly out gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer community. Like there's part of like, that seems like a weird hobby, but okay, not everything's for me. But really, it goes to show why you do stuff like that. And part of, I guess, why is, and I'll just read the quote, the massive increase in the number of out athletes reflects the growing acceptance of the LGBTQ people in sports and society. So if you ever wonder why people collect information like that, it's so that we can have good news like this sometimes. But so, yay, there's signs of more growth and acceptance, something I'm a big fan of. Because as a queer person, and also a vagina-born person, as I like to kind of say, I am an owner of one. I noticed that a lot of the queer community, like in some of the groups, like tend to get looped in with women's groups. One, for example, is I could always find women's climbing groups and women's hiking groups. And then there are gay groups too, but that's not always as inclusive as the full queer community. So I found like a lacking of just true queer support in some of the groups. That was something that I thought was really awesome about here because I met somebody who is starting a queer climbing group that is kind of meant to really incorporate like that kind of community. So yeah, exciting times. I love seeing more embracing of people being different. It makes people more comfortable being them.
Yes, and someone else, I think, another Olympian I feel we should be proud of is Simone Biles, the gymnast. And
Yeah.
why do I think we should be happy and supportive and proud of what she did? She, for mental health reasons, decided to bow out of the Olympics. And I think that is an important thing for athletes in this country, for just athletes in general, because for too long, how many stories have you heard about athletes that have been pushed to keep on going even though they have an injury? I think of the 1996 Olympics in wrestling, Kurt Angle, who went on to become a professional wrestler, but legitimately he was in the 1996 Olympics and won a gold medal, but he had a broken neck when he did that.
Yeah.
Is that honorable, or is that just dumb? That's
I think
dumb.
it goes to show how important being the best is to some countries. That even goes into, I had just shared a story about who was she with? Was she Russian? I forget. It was Elena Mankina. I'm really bad with names, but I still try. But yeah, Soviet gymnast coaches pressured doctors to remove her cast early so that she could do like the 1980s Olympics. And I guess she tried to protest it. She tried to say no. She knew she wasn't healed. And she got pushed anyway. And while practicing a move called the Thomas Salto, which was banned since then for being like too dangerous to do, Um, Basically, her leg failed like she was afraid it would, and she wound up landing on her chin. She broke her neck and became quadriplegic for the rest of her life. She was only 20. Only
Jeez.
20. So the 20-year-old had the sense of their own body to say, hey, I really don't think my body can do this. It doesn't matter if it's because of a broken leg or a broken neck or mental health. If you know your body and you're saying you can't do this, you can't perform your optimal level, and this is a dangerous, very physically demanding sport, by the way. Like, this is not swinging on the monkey bars. This is a very intense thing. Come on, these are Olympians. If anybody could just roll out of bed and do it with a, like, kick off their splint and do it the next day, it probably wouldn't be in the Olympics.
I mean,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
think, oh, sorry about that. Think about the strength it takes to be able to just do one flip as a human being, being able to flip. Now imagine not having the strength to do an entire turnaround and you land on your neck. You know,
Exactly. And I think it just, people's reaction to this is just so interesting. And I think it goes to show just how far we need to come in our understanding of mental health and how important it is. And that, yes, it is very much just as important as that person's broken leg.
another example I read was also from the 96 Olympics, and I believe her name was Carrie Strug. She was a gymnast at the time, and she had an injured leg as well. And it was a guy, I read this on Facebook, a guy talking about rewatching this with his daughters in modern times. And, how the coach at the time said, like, you push through it, shake your leg up, because she had a leg injury, and then forced her to go back out there and do it. And this guy said, watching that again with his daughters, he felt ill because his daughters turned to him and says, she's hurt. Why is she going out there? Why are they making her go out and do that? And he thought, that was not courage, because when it happened at the time, I do remember that, they presented it as she sucked it up, she got the courage out there. But also remember too, a lot of the mental pressures that these women in the gymnastics were going through, because they had a doctor as a part of the U.S. gymnastics team that was molesting them all during this whole time too. So it's for Simone Biles, I commend her for doing this, because we need more athletes to stand up and say it is okay to take care of yourself. You do not need to put yourself into danger for a gold medal, because how are you going to enjoy that with a broken neck?
Or being quadriplegic. Yeah, because one part that I really loved about a story that I had shared was the idea of, I would much rather read the headline that says somebody pulls out of a team final for mental health reasons than to be greeted with, Simone Biles paralyzed during dismount. I would much rather support somebody for listening to their body, listening to their mind, because those things are very much connected. If you don't believe me, feel free to you can Google, educate yourself on it all you want. But I'm a very firm believer that mental health and physical health are very much interconnected, because as my other stuff that I do with There Is Life After Trauma, I talk about that. And then on my own profile, I talk very openly about, I cortisol management, man. Like, because that shit is connected. I need to do the physical health to have the mental health, but I also have to do the mental hygiene to have the physical health. So
Yes.
big believer those are connected. I applaud Simone very, very openly. Thank you for being an example of saying fucking no when you know that your body isn't at a point of doing it. So big kudos, huge.
Yes, amen to that. Now, one thing that has come out of that I felt has been interesting in a really stupid way is the people that are coming out, and conservatives, mind you, conservatives with my physique, a little bit of a gut or something. They're saying she let America down, that she's a quitter, that it's I don't get.
If you want a gold medal so bad, you go practice for the Olympics. You know what I mean? Like, it just, that's like such a weird passive aggressive controlling bullshit. It's like, if your romantic partner did that to you, it would be so clear that is like manipulation and emotional blackmail. So I just think it's funny that these dudes are like trying to emotionally blackmail Simone Biles by having a widow shame party that she did America a sad. You know what? We kind of have a pandemic and some other things going on right now that I think really warrant your attention more than not winning at the Olympics and your pissing contest between another country.
And
Because that's what I almost feel like some of it is, right? Like, please feel free to put me in my place if I'm wrong.
no, these are the people. I mean, these are the people that I mean, they'll badmouth her and say she's un-American, but the people on January 6th were just tourists. They were there for fun, you know.
Right? Like, God, talk about fucked up priorities. And the Olympics isn't even supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be about bringing countries together and some unity and some good, healthy, awesome competition. That is
Yeah,
actually supposed to be the heart of the Olympics. That's why it's people holding hands and rings and shit. Like, it's
there
not supposed to be this country's the best. Like, come on.
there is nothing wrong with being competitive. There's nothing wrong with showmanship. There's nothing wrong with supporting a team. You know, it's like, yeah, if America won a lot of medals, it would be great, I guess. Is that going to change my world? No, but it's like, yay, sports. But again, priorities here, priorities. You know, it's like I love too how when it comes to the Olympics, when the Olympics happen, everybody's like, I totally love them. I totally love them. But the moment the Olympics are done, do you think people are going to want to watch the luge? Are they going to want to watch skeet shooting or whatever they do during the Summer Olympics now? It's just silly. It's just people get brought up into this nonsense and it's silly. You know, I mean, if
Yeah,
you
to me, it just seems wrapped around the axle around something unimportant. But basically, winning a medal is not more important than the life of that person that you're trying to make do the competition that you're not doing your damn self.
exactly, exactly. So conservatives, fuck off. Anyway, let's move on here. Last week we talked about Kevin Smith and a little something that I thought was interesting in the news happened involving him. So I thought we would talk about it. His new cartoon, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, the first half of season 1 dropped on Netflix and it made white guys around the United States crazy. Why is that? Because in the first half of this season, now the season is not done. What we have is like a cliffhanger that will lead into part 2. But I don't plan to watch it. I don't think you're going to plan to watch it. So I'm going to go into some spoilers here. He-Man in the story is killed early on in the first episode. And when you see him in the other episodes, there are a total of 5 episodes to start the season off. You see him mostly in flashbacks. The main character that we are following in the present story is a woman, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. That's what's pissing people off.
Okay.
Yeah, and but that's what's making people mad because you got a bunch of alt-right goons that have come out and said that He-Man is now woke. He-Man is an SJW show and all that stuff, and Kevin Smith has just been getting a lot of shit. Like his show on Rotten Tomato, the show on Rotten Tomatoes has been review bombed. You know, people have just gone there for the audience review and just given it all 1 star. So you'll notice like critics give it like a big score. It has a high score for critics and like under 20% for fan scores. And but Kevin Smith has done one thing that I did appreciate. He has come out on his podcast and told those people to grow the fuck up because it's He-Man. And he pointed out one thing too, is that the season's not over. You know, it's like the second half of the season is coming out later and it's He-Man. He-Man's going to come back, you know.
Like you have no idea what the plan is for this show and you're having yourself a little poopy bottom lip bird moment because it's not going the way that you thought. It goes back to write your own cartoon then. Make your own. If you're so disappointed in the creative outlet that somebody has given you,
yeah,
then go make your own. Like I don't get why people get it all into this. And by the way, do people really like go to Rotten Tomatoes to decide what to watch and not watch? Because I think he's like big name enough that people are going to watch it or not watch it based on name of what it is and Kevin Smith. Like I don't think people really base it that much off of Rotten Tomatoes because personally, I found it to be wrong several times for my personal taste. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean that Rotten Tomatoes is not like a Siskel and Ebert. Siskel and Ebert, at least you understood where they were coming from, and even if you didn't agree with their take, you could at least respect it. With how Rotten Tomatoes does things, I don't listen to them at all, because even the ones that they say are bad are ones that just had the majority of people that didn't necessarily care for it, but again, doesn't make it bad. And but they don't tell you really why. It's just an aggregate number. It's not giving you specific reasons. So I've never paid attention to it, and I don't know anybody that really does. Maybe if something came out with like a 0%, then I'm thinking maybe. But even then, some of the 0% ones have some charm. Freddie Got Fingered, I believe, is at 0%.
yeah, I think comparing Rotten Tomatoes to Siskel and Ebert is much like comparing Yelp to like an actual food critic.
Yeah.
Um, I would probably take the food critic's advice a little bit more seriously than Yelp. But even on Yelp, I read what the one-star reviews are. Is it just somebody being bitchy because they didn't get a thing they wanted? Or were there actually like legitimate concerns? Like I'm a Google guide person, so I do try to like do stuff. But when it isn't a five-star review, I notice I actually talk more because I want to explain why. Like what took away from my experience there versus like if it's 5 stars, it's like, hey, there was like nothing bad to report. Awesome burgers. Here's a picture. Ka-chow. But I
Yeah.
guess like I've never really taken Rotten Tomatoes with that. Like I wouldn't even take the effort to go and read the one-star reviews to see if they're petty or not, because I just assume most of them are just kind of silly. And I don't know. I don't understand going and reviewing something of an artwork to be a 1 star personally.
I I wouldn't even do it with movies that I dislike. And yeah, if I really dislike a movie, why am I going to go out of my way to focus on it, to expend any sort of mental energy on it by writing something up? To me, that's a complete waste of time. That doesn't mean I wouldn't take time, like on the show here, for instance, to talk about a movie I may not like. I think you can have an honest discourse about stuff you don't like, but when it's just,
Yeah,
this sucks, how is that helping anybody? It's not. You're just being a
exactly. Like
jackass.
I could totally go on to Ernie Klein, Ready Player Two, and give it a 1 star review and call him names because I'm personally offended by the weird comment about non-binary sex because it's like, what do you think that is exactly? Um, but I could go do that, but why? Like, there's some people that sentence didn't bother at all. It's probably because I'm non-binary that it really stood out to me as being a really fucking weird thing to say.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna go and trash it because of one sentence that I heard about in a book. So it just kind of feels like that's what's happening is they got part of the first season. They didn't like what they saw right there. So now they're going to go trash it before it's even done. I guess that is kind of a risk you take when you make it sound like possibly it's going to be about one character and then you make it about an opposing gender character. But I don't know. I've liked Kevin Smith whenever he's taken risks in the past, so I almost want to maybe go watch this just to see what he does with the second half. So thank you, haters. You actually got someone else to watch it. Backfire.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that point up too, because yeah, if it was released as a complete season and he had heavily promoted it as He-Man will be in every single episode and kicking ass along the way, and then they killed him and then didn't really talk about him, yeah, people would have a legitimate point to be mad. But that's not what's happening here. One, and two, the season's not over. We have a to be continued at the end of episode 5 here. Once the rest of the season comes, we will find out what happens. And this is He-Man. He's coming
Yeah,
back.
probably. And if he doesn't, I'm sure they're going to take some other turn with it. And I hope other people pick it up and love it because it turns out to be their thing where they may not have been interested in seeing He-Man. Maybe there are enough people out there that would be interested in watching a female protagonist character kind of take over the reins. We've seen like other trade-offs and other movies do this where we don't have the same Captain America anymore. and we don't have the same Spider-Man anymore. It's okay to hand the reins off. It doesn't all need to be you tripping on nostalgia constantly. You know what I mean? Like I want to see new creations instead of rewashes of things. I personally view it as a good thing.
That and the beauty of what's being done here is this: even though this is a reboot, what he has done by giving some focus to this character was in the original show, but if you watch the original show, you know it was made just for boys, so the female characters didn't have much to do. By doing this, by, I believe the character's name is Vila, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong, by focusing on her character, if enough people are interested and the numbers are high enough, guess who's getting a new show? That's more content that's created, more in a new audience that you can introduce by simply just having a female, an honest to goodness, real female character there, not a two-dimensional stick figure.
Yeah. It is kind of funny though, because you kind of make this assumption of people sometimes, which I realize is probably bad that I do this, but it's like you realize that these are the same people that will totally stop watching like something like this over it not meeting some expectation that it needed to be like the male protagonist they expected, but they will continue to watch like, I don't want to say Cosby. I think Cosby very effectively got canceled, but like other artists that have actually done some pretty not great things.
Andrew
They
Dice
will
Clay.
totally continue to pay and consume for that. But heaven fucking forbid that a show not meet your expectations, right?
Yes, a show that was aimed at kids is not meeting your expectations as a 45-year-old guy.
Yeah, because not everything is made for you to feel nostalgia feelings. I understand nostalgia is a very good feeling. There's a lot of really cool psychology behind like why we get nostalgia and
Mhm.
probably why we've had such an uptick, like even since 2016, but then again also through the pandemic, is there is something that like tickles part of our brain and increases some good happy feelings, but it is fleeting and we don't need everything to be a nostalgia trip. I don't know. I think it's funny that I went from not knowing anything about the show to now being really ready to watch it and support it.
There you
Because
go.
I mean, not if I don't like it, honestly. If I was like, oh, okay, well, the script is kind of lame, but it's also for children, I'm still not going to go tank review it because it's not for me.
Yeah.
It's for kids.
Well, Mark Hamill is Skeletor.
Oh, that's amazing. And see, I love that even more.
Yeah. Yeah, he Kevin Smith called in a lot of favors. So like a lot of the voice cast are people he's worked with before, or at least he's friendly with. I don't think he's worked with Sarah Michelle Gellar before, but I know he's worked with people that they run in the same circles. I know that much. So
Yeah, I mean, but that goes back to I always thought that was a good sign with like comedians slash actors. Like when you notice that they do a lot of repeats with each other and work together a lot, like it becomes kind of their own little community.
yeah,
So I could see that. And Mark Hamill was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I'm pretty sure he's also been in something else of that what's that world, the Jay and Silent
the
Bob world. I thought he was
Viewers
in another
universe.
one.
Views. Yeah, I he's been involved in some stuff. I off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you, but I know him and Kevin Smith are still very much good friends. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was what got them together. But that's a thing too, because Mark Hamill talked about, like normally, because of the amount of people that want to ask him Star Wars questions, he doesn't like to talk about it as much. And I get that. But, with Kevin Smith, he was comfortable enough with him that, they talk about it. And same thing with Carrie Fisher. Kevin Smith told a story about like this like charity book reading event he had at his house, and poetry reading. That's right. And Carrie Fisher came and off the top of her head, just memorization, gave the "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope" speech in front of the group. But that shows what type of friendship that Kevin was able to get with her to do that, because she was in the same spot. Just imagine how many people wanted to ask her Star Wars questions over the years, and that would be annoying. So
Right. Isn't that kind of amazing how that played out for Kevin Smith? Because, at one point he wasn't anybody. He
mhm.
was that kid that watched Star Wars. So that is really kind of epically fucking cool that he got to kind of be friends with like some of his nerd origination. you know.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
mean, yeah, Mark and Carrie. He was a big friend with Stan Lee. He, through stuff like Chasing Amy and his own comic book fandom, he was able to write comics for both Marvel and DC. So he's had his hands in a lot of cookie pots that he's. I'm sure he would very much say he is very lucky to be able to do just because of the opportunities that his movies gave him. So yeah,
At
because we
one
talk.
point, he was a kid. That's all. Just at one point, he was a kid that liked a movie.
Yeah. And it was those movies that inspired him to do his thing, and now he's got a way to honor his heroes and still find a way to give back. So speaking of movies, last night with the professor, we went to the Hollywood Theater, and I got to cross another movie off my bucket list.
Nice.
Yes, as we record this today is a Wednesday. So the Wednesday episode that dropped today was about another movie that we saw. We saw two movies that cross off my bucket list. So we saw both The Wizard of Oz at the Hollywood, which was amazing. And last night we saw Smokey and the Bandit.
I do love just a quick shout out to the Hollywood Theater. I know it sounds like we're probably going to go through another wave of some closures, but especially once we do figure out what new normal is,
Yeah.
I highly recommend. It's such a good venue to enjoy a movie. They really do like make it kind of nice there, even though it's like it's not the fanciest place, but I like the attitude of the moviegoers. Went to that Adam West showing of Batman.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Didn't we go? Wasn't that something we had done together? Okay, I was
Yeah.
pretty sure. I was like, yeah, I was like pretty sure we went to the Hollywood the one time. I loved it because they're clapping. There's just this really nice atmosphere there. So how was watching that at the Hollywood Theater?
Oh, it was great. I mean, for the folks that are listening to me talk right now, you can go back in the archives and hear my thoughts on The Wizard of Oz. As far as Smokey and the Bandit, being able to see some of those scenes of like Burt Reynolds being Burt Reynolds, just his charisma, like that scene early on where his first chase with a cop and he escapes the cop and then like looks into the camera for the first time and smiles. The audience was just dying laughing. And of course, the one who got the most laugh was Sheriff Buford T. Justice, the great Jackie Gleason. I love that line of his, like when he's talking to his son. Remind me when I go home, I'm gonna go through that door and punch your mama right in the mouth after for giving birth to their son and
Oh
whatnot.
my goodness.
But these past two movies have really gotten me thinking about my movie bucket list. I have movies that I really hope to see on the big screen before I die. And Portland being Portland, thankfully, I've gotten to cross a number of those movies off my bucket list. So I think I have a very, very good chance of these being crossed off, hopefully someday soon. But I thought we would go through my list of five. I got more than five, but I thought we would stick with five and talk about just the movies real quickly too. So are you ready?
Oh yeah, I mean, we covered, I don't have any. I think all I've got, just if anybody was curious out there, I really want to see Wicked live, like to the tune of I will be like, are you playing a song from Wicked? And I will make people like, please don't play that. Because I've already heard like one or two of the songs. I'm trying really hard to keep it so I could see it in person. But yeah, no big screen movies for me. So take it away, Tim.
All right, so this will not be a proper nerdy five here, so a half nerdy five maybe. But number one on my list came out in, I believe, either 91 or 92. We're at its almost 30-year anniversary. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I never saw that on the big screen, and I would absolutely love to be able, hasta la vista, baby. Come on. Who wouldn't love to see Arnold being Arnold on the big screen doing that? And there are just a couple scenes that I would love to see too, like at the beginning after John Connor escapes out of the mall and the Terminators start chasing after him, and that where they're in that little gully and John's riding on the little like dirt bike and the semi's chasing after him, but then on the big Harley motorcycle, the Terminator jumps down. Just badass action scene. I would really, really love to see that on the big screen. I've seen the first Terminator thanks to the Laurelhurst Theater, but Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I would love to see that on a big screen. What are your thoughts on T2?
I've seen it.
On the
super anticlimactic response. Like, I know it's been on in the background. I could see where like some of the older movies might be fun to see on a big screen, especially like some of the more action-packed ones, like that, right? You're talking about like jumping out of stuff, but
yeah,
while probably on fire and explosions, kapows in the background.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, would you think that it would have to be remastered, or would it be like, for example, I remember when they re-released Final Fantasy VII and how funny that was because they remastered nothing, but TVs got so much bigger. And I was like, wow, this game is blocky as fuck. So, I mean, I would imagine do you think if they do them on the big screen, they try to remaster them for the quality that big screens offer now, or do you think that would be necessary?
I mean, I who knows? I did like James Cameron just got the rights to the Terminator franchise back. Unfortunately, with the failure of the Terminator Dark Fate movie, who knows if they're going to make any more? But as far as like if they did a re-release, it's certainly possible. I've never gotten the impression that Jim Cameron is like a George Lucas. He's never been a tinkerer. When he's released a movie, it's generally just here you go. And there may be some like added scenes, like I know Terminator 2, for instance, on the DVD. There is a DVD version that you can get that has some additional scenes that weren't in the theatrical cut of the film. So it's minor. But it's not like the Star Wars special editions. It's not like an almost new version. So I don't think we would be going the George Lucas route, but we could see like new scenes maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but as far as like the effects, I think by today's standards, I think people may be like, that's cute, but I still think they do hold up, especially the liquid metal stuff. I mean, for being able to do what they did in '92 shouldn't have happened, and look what they were able to do there. But I'll go into my second movie here, one I've talked about before, so I don't think we have to go through this too much. Superman the movie, '78. I mean, I would just absolutely love to be in a theater to have surround sound just playing John Williams music more than anything. I mean, that's one of John Williams' best scores. And then seeing Christopher Reeve on the big screen, I probably would just be like just weeping throughout the whole movie. Like I would be like that that episode of Family Guy where Peters started becoming a fan of like chick movies, as he called it, and then like at the end of like the movie, he like stands up, he's crying, he's like, yeah, and that would be me and Superman. So do you
Well,
have
I'm
any?
surprised they haven't done anything like that because wasn't Batman something they had done with Adam West's passing? So I would almost keep an eye out like around an anniversary of his or something, right? Like I would think
Well,
they do it.
I mean, it's I mean, I don't think there's never going to be a time where some movie theater important will show it. But having said that, the director Richard Donner, as we discussed last on our last episode, it passed away, and the only movie that the Hollywood showing of his is in late August, and that's The Omen. So I don't know if it's going to be something that's anytime soon. And just The Omen of all things, they couldn't show Lethal Weapon. I mean, but I don't know,
Yeah,
but
it sounds like there might be some copyright complications. You know what I mean? Because why the Omen? Like it's such it. My first thought is that it really reduces your audience because not everybody is into the scary movies, especially scary children. Seems to be like one of those kind of being somebody that works in a haunt. It's like clowns and children and pets, like
yeah.
really unglue a big amount of people. So I could really see that kind of limiting who comes. So I'm wondering, but maybe later they will once things get figured out. We know death complicates shit sometimes. So they
Yeah.
might be trying to figure out who has the rights to ask whether they
Yeah.
can play it.
Well, with Superman, it's simply just Warner Brothers. So and Warner Brothers usually is pretty good about their and that would be the same thing with like Lethal Weapon as well. Disney, on the other hand, is notorious about not letting their films play in essentially second run theaters like that. So you're not going to generally see like an independent theater in the middle of nowhere being able to play like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That's just never going to happen. But that's also never going to happen
Hold
now
on, wasn't
for.
there like a teacher? I was gonna say, sorry, wasn't there like a teacher that played it like during the like early on of the pandemic or something, and like Disney tried to sue the school or something?
Yeah,
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 like they're really that bad about it. They
yeah.
are like they will screw you if you do something they don't like.
There was a father in Great Britain whose child died. His child was a big fan of Spider-Man, and he wanted to have a headstone with Spider-Man. And the people that made the headstone said, legally, we can't do it unless we have permission. The father asked Disney, because Disney owns Marvel. Disney said no.
Oh, Disney, no. I don't know if I can. Wow, that's the stuff that makes me not want to support them. I'm like, come on. It's
Yeah.
a kid who's dead. Nobody's trying to make money off of that.
I mean, their reasoning is that they don't want the character associated with death, headstones, stuff like that. They don't want to give the impression that they're trying to profit off of it, I guess. And I get that, but why? Think of like for the longest time, Star Trek, for instance. Take Star Trek. Had fans of Star Trek have gotten together on their own with their own money and have produced their own versions of like episodes of Star Trek that the CBS has very much been aware of, but they've allowed to happen just because these people are not trying to make money off of it. So CBS thought it was cool. So I don't get why Disney doesn't do that, because when Disney does stuff like this, fans like myself have the reaction that we're both having right now. It's just like you don't do that. There's your character, your IP are not like the IP Apple has with their computers. They mean more to people than just a computer means to somebody. These are characters that have been in their lives, in Disney's case, since their childhood. They mean a lot to them. They're almost like family members. And to treat it like, Apple would treat a computer is just wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah, like context kind of matters. And it sounds like the gravestone would have been a good one to just give them permission to do it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't necessarily feel that is the most genuine response. That more sounds like a bunch of people sat down and said, shit, how do we say no to this and not look like assholes? It's like, oh, well, we'll just say we don't want Spider-Man associated with death. That'll work. And I don't know. That's how I kind of feel. I'm open to people
Yeah.
interpreting it differently, but it just feels kind of like gross. But that's also just because they have a history of being kind of gross. At least they did drop that lawsuit from that school, though. They wound up not pursuing that because I don't know, probably the same 5 people in the room as the let's not have Spider-Man put on a gravestone committee probably couldn't think of anything good, so they just dropped it. But
And that's the thing with Disney. It's like the negative press that they get for saying no, I think far outweighs any sort of damage that could potentially happen if like they had just let the Spider-Man be etched on this kid's gravestone.
exactly.
I
And
mean,
nobody probably would have even seen it or heard of it. Like, who's gonna walk through and be like, oh, Spider-Man is death now? Like, people barely go to graveyard. Like, I know I like running through them, and that's just something that I do. It's peaceful for me. It's a nice place to go have a jog, IMHO.
mhm.
But most people don't do that. Most people don't go and just look around gravestones and stuff. So anyway, my brain is done processing the ridiculousness that is that story. And now I know that. Thank you, Tim. I didn't need to know that Disney was petty about a little boy's gravestone. That's a bummer.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So thank you,
what's
Disney.
your
So
next movie?
yeah, let's talk about our next movie. Number three, we're going to go to the biggest movie of 1989, the only Tim Burton movie I will want to watch in a theater now, and that is Batman from Michael Keaton. I've not watched that in theaters.
I thought you were going to say the Muppets.
No, Tim Burton. He may have done some work on the Muppets. I with like the Muppets, like because he was like a Disney animator in the late '70s, and he was also interested in puppetry. So I think he may have done some work with Jim Henson at some point.
Okay, I'm probably just mixing up words, but anyway,
Yeah.
continue with
Anyway,
your
anyway,
movie.
yes, Batman
Actual
80.
next choice.
Yeah, Batman 89. Like when it came out, like I didn't go to the movies as much, so the only way I was able to see that until years later was my mother bought me back in the 80s, before you could have streaming, or if you didn't have a VCR, they would make novelizations of movies. and I read the novelization of Batman. So that, but yeah, I mean, Jack Nicholson as the Joker, just seeing him on the big screen chewing up scenery, uttering one of my favorite lines, like when Vicky Vale, played by Kim Basinger, is like scared at the museum. The Joker's just gassed everybody. She goes to him and she turns to him and goes, "You're crazy," and he goes, "But I thought I was a Pisces." Love that line. Love that line. I'd love to see it on the big screen. But any memories about Batman?
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't seen Batman 8089. You said I was 4 at the time, so I definitely did not catch it in theaters. And I don't think I quite had the dexterity and ability to even understand the picture books maybe just yet. But
Mm.
I can understand like a lot of appeal to seeing some of those older movies in the big screen though. Because I know like I personally am not big into the big theater and how noisy and the people, but there's a lot of people that can get so into the big screen and being surrounded by the sound that that doesn't matter to them. And I could see that being a very appealing thing. Like maybe I'd have more of a list if I could rent out the theaters by myself, but that just seems like very bougie and unlikely in my life. Like I'm not rolling in dough, folks. Spoiler alert.
Uh,
So, but I can see why. That makes sense.
yeah, another. I mean, that's another reason I love Portland, and I love having a Hollywood Theater membership because Hollywood Theater now owns a place in town called Movie Madness, which is an independent video store. But what they have on the inside is a little mini theater you can rent. And with a Hollywood Theater membership, that gives you a discount on it, and like you would essentially be paying for, I think it's like $200, but you get to like pick the movies that go in there, and you can have like up to like I believe 10 people in there watching that movie. So if look for the local independent movie scene in your area to see if maybe they have something similar, because it wouldn't shock me, because that may be what movies may go towards in the future too, in terms of kind of going away from the corporate aspect that you get from like Regal theaters or AMC theaters, but make them more smaller, to where you have more control over what you watch. And essentially, you'd be renting a room or something like that. Would you do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one I totally would. That seems reasonable. So I guess maybe I could have maybe mustered up a list. Maybe I gave up on this one a little bit too fast. But
Yeah,
uh
yeah.
but yeah, it would kind of take that though. And I guess that is a good way to do it. But maybe I'll have to look into that and see what is local, what there might be an equivalent here. I do know that there's like some decent theater groups. There is some of that creativity and quirkiness in the area. So I should see if there's a place that would be like the Hollywood.
I would, yeah. I mean, I can't. I mean, for a smaller town, who knows these days? I mean, a lot of places just don't have the money to have an arts venue of that type. Excuse me, set up. But if you do, that would definitely be awesome. Then you would have a little more control if you were able to rent something like that. But how about I go to number 4 on the list here?
Go for it.
Okay, number 4 on my list. We got to go with at least one James Bond movie. For me, the types of movies I want to see are, just spectacles, and Bond essentially created spectacle. And if you're going to watch a James Bond movie on the big screen, there are a number to choose from, and this was hard to pick just one. I had to go with Goldfinger.
Goldfinger. I only know that because Goldmember made fun of
Mm.
it. So I will totally own early. I have not seen a lot of James Bond. So
It's was the third film in the series, but it was the first one that got the formula right. The previous two, Doctor No and From Russia with Love, were almost there, but they didn't have it just yet. And I mean, because sometimes with artistic stuff, it takes a while to get into the groove. And by the third movie, they got into the groove. Just the opening scene alone, where he's like fighting a guy in a room that throws the guy into a bathtub that's filled with water, and then just as a guy's reaching for a gun, Bond throws something electrical in the bathtub, electrocuting the guy, and then picks up his gun and goes, "Shocking." And then goes to the door,
oh,
positively shocking, and then walks out that door. you
oh,
know?
shocking. I thought you said he went shunking. I'm like,
No,
what is shunking?
Shocking, shocking.
What the show?
Yes, but
What the show?
I know. We will go with my last one here. This is the newest movie on the list and one that I did not see in theaters. And initially, I kind of pirated it. Whoops. It's a little 2012 independent movie you may have heard of called The Avengers. I didn't see that on the big screen. I would love to see it on the big screen.
Oh, you didn't see the Avengers? I think I actually did catch that one. I may have actually seen the Avengers. See, it's like I know I've seen movies because every now and then somebody drags me out and does it. Like I know I saw Venom, which was funny because we took my stepson and that was a very loud movie. And at one point he turns to the Mr. Reverend and goes, "Can we go out in the hall?" I think we
Yeah.
saw one of the Avengers movies together, but I don't think it was the original one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there have been four in total. You got 2015's Age of Ultron, and then of course Infinity War and Endgame.
Endgame, I know I saw. That was an interesting one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
so you missed that one when it was in theaters then, huh?
I did, and I totally regret it because the first time I saw it, it was like this was the first movie that because obviously there have been plenty of great superhero movies in the past. Of course, I've already mentioned some on this list, but they also were not as faithful to the comics. They were essentially they took elements but made it a movie version. The Avengers was the first time that it felt like a comic book was alive, and that scene, the famous scene where the camera kind of circles the crew, that kind of symbolizes that they're a team for the first time. Like I saw that on my TV at home at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was like clapping and shedding tears and woke up my kids. It's just like it was just it's and yes, it's a simple, silly, goofy movie. I would be the first one to point out all the plot holes and whatnot, but somebody kind of described Marvel movies, and I like their analogy. He says, Marvel people enjoy Marvel movies like people enjoy sports. It's not that they necessarily like Marvel fans like myself don't necessarily go in necessarily for the story. I think you'll find plenty of Marvel fans that will be very open of the fact that these can be silly sometimes, but you're there to cheer on the characters more than anything. I think of seeing Endgame on opening night with the audience, and during the big portal scene, people were cheering like it was a sporting event, and just it was wild and it was amazing, and just I love that a silly movie about guys in tights hitting each other can get people that wild and people that excited. Like I was weeping. Seat in front of me, there were a couple of young ladies in their 20s. They were weeping. People were weeping, screaming, cheering, and shouting. And I would have loved to have been their opening night for the first time. And that is just like I missed out. But I made up for that.
Yeah, men in tights, studded gloves, like that almost sounds like a movie that I would be in. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I actually really like a lot of the Marvel universe. I haven't seen everything. I'm not one of those like stalk it diehard fans where I'm like really finger on the pulse of what's going on, so I know exactly what's out. But I'd see wanting to see those on a big screen, especially the situation like where you just informed me that I guess I could try to get some kind of situation where I could get as close to a private box as I could.
Yeah.
But I could. That's one that I might watch. I would maybe go out of my way to see that on a big screen. I'm so a creature of comfort, though. Like I like being at home when I watch a movie. But as long as I could pause it to pee, maybe there's hope for me yet.
Yeah, I mean, because there is something to be said about going to another location to watch a movie. It doesn't have to be a big place, but it's that concerted effort to get out of your comfort zone at home to share an experience with other people like that you don't even necessarily get. Like if you invited your friends over and just put the movie on TV, because everybody's still going to talk. Whereas in a movie theater or a place that kind of gives you the feeling of a movie theater, people are gonna be quiet and treat it more like the experience how it's supposed to be, I guess.
Yeah.
Listen to me being a gatekeeping snob here.
Oh, what? Gatekeeping snob? You couldn't even enjoy an awesome dog music video because you couldn't get over the music part of it. But it's okay. I'm not going to judge you too harshly for that.
Yes. But anyway, that is my list of movies on my movie bucket list. Like I said, that's the 5 that I could come up with. I've got a few more, but Portland being Portland, I've definitely seen my fair share of movies that I never thought I'd get to see on the big screen. So, and yeah, as long as we have movie theaters that are open, visit some movie theaters, enjoy them, and treat the people that work there with some kindness. People in the service industry and the retail industry are going through a lot right now, and just even the barest minimum amount of kindness can go a long way for people in those industries. I can tell you that from experience.
If you don't believe that, like, just try calling them by their name and see how appreciative they are of that. It's kind of crazy. That's a practice that I do, is remembering that these are humans. They're not just service drones. They have feelings and a name, and they wear a name tag. So it's literally easier than like people I meet and try to become friends with, as I desperately try to remember their name. So just small kindnesses. Be nice to people in service. Like, they've worked throughout pretty much this whole time. So
yes. Now, before we wrap up, we did hear some news today, and it kind of pertains to the battle for state supremacy, too. So I thought we would bring it up. Did you want to deliver the news, Reverend Tracy?
I'm going to let you do it, because I am I'm not as versed. I know it's sad because ZZ Top was on my list of state supremacy. But essentially what happened is the bassist passed away today, and we had gotten that news just as we were finalizing what we were talking about today and saying, all right, we're going to meet and record. Oh, snap, somebody died.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much all I know about the situation. I don't know what, but I'm sure we'll probably end up talking about that in the Facebook group. Twitter will be blowing up about it, I'm sure, by the time we're done with this, if not already.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's bummer news.
Bummer news, but when it comes to musicians like this, I think the important thing to do is to honor their memory. Put on some music. It's a ZZ Top for goodness sake here. They put out some great, fun music that you can just laugh and enjoy and just have a good time with. I posted on the group page the video for, I think it was Sharp Dressed Man. You got yeah, that's the great song from ZZ Top. But just listen to some music today and enjoy Dusty Hill's memory. That was the guy's name. So I think we will wrap it up there, unless you have anything else you want to plug.
I don't right now. Yep, just RIP to ZZ Top person, and another one in the books for us, I suppose.
All right, so I think we'll wrap it up then. Thank you all for listening. Every Wednesday and Saturday in this podcast space, we will have something to entertain your ear holes. We appreciate you listening. We bid you adieu.
Until we find other ways to entertain the other holes in your face, goodbye.
Okay.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.